Well, I'm quite honored to be here today. I want to thank Kay and the staff of the Animal Ag Alliance. I attended this last year and I was really impressed with it, and so when she asked me to tell a story about our open door policy, I guess you'd say open barn policy that we're working on, it's all part of being transparent, so let's go for it. So anyways, I'm really a family farmer, so all that reading he did there is really not that important to me. I just look at myself as a family farmer. And we do have 1,800 team members in our company. And in fact, we have 3 of them here today. They're very key individuals. And I would like to introduce them. We have Terry Werkamp, who's our live division manager. Please stand up, Terry. We have Cassie Jo, Aaron, and Emily Smith. They both are in our communications and coordination program. So anyways, 3 representatives of our group. So my parents started the company back in 1938, so much like Brad's story. In fact, a lot of this is going to replicate what Brad talked about on different levels, different species obviously, but pretty much all the same story. Myself, my brother Jim, my sister Diane, we're in the 2nd generation. My parents, Virgil and Virginia Cooper, started back in 1938. You know, it's kind of that American entrepreneur story, 300 turkeys out on a farm in Ohio. That's a picture of my dad later on in life when it's just a hand drawing of him. But just started out as family farmers, and I remember as a kid and growing up that we had a full family farm. So we raised ducks and geese, and of course we had a hatchery, so we hatched them, and we had sheep, and we had some steers. A horse one time, and so we had all the animals. I raised pigs. I took pigs to the 4-H fair. So as a young boy, starting at 7 or 8 years old, I was being paid 25 cents an hour to sweep the floors in the hatchery or whatever. But one of the rules that we had was, or I should say Dad had, is that you had to feed the animals before you fed yourself, right? So I just think that there's a lot when you have a family farm, how you get passionate about this. So since I've been doing this only thing for my entire life, obviously I'm pretty passionate about it. I'll tell you a little bit more about the company, just to kind of paint the picture of where we're coming from. So we weren't always as transparent, and I'm kind of guessing that Brad might be in the same situation. But back in the day when I first started working for Dad full time, there wasn't really a need for it. We didn't feel any outside pressure to open up our doors or for other, the media to come in, or even consumers. In fact, I don't remember when I first started for the company anybody ever talking about consumers. We were farmers raising turkeys and raising hogs and so on. And so, it's obviously a big changed situation these days. Anyways, so just kind of pointing out here, obviously we're in 3 different species here. We raise turkeys, hogs, and chicken layers. Our turkey business is our core business, is what we started in. We got into the hog business back in the 90s, and we've also gotten the chicken layer business back in the 80s or 90s. And so we really consider ourselves a core animal husbandry type of business. Even though that in all 3 divisions now we literally do have farm to fork type of capabilities, we still believe that one of our core businesses is that we and our people who work for us have a passion for raising animals in the correct way. So you can see that these are turkey poults on the side here. We hatch 15 million turkey poults a year. Well, you can imagine when you're talking about like calves, you're talking about baby turkeys. Everybody loves to see baby turkeys and everything, but there's a whole host of different things that need to happen to assure that those turkeys will grow up properly, right? And you guys are all aware of this. You have to have beak trimming, or maybe you have to have toenail trimming, or they have to be vaccinated, or there's all kinds of things that do need to happen to them to provide for a better life, much like we all do for our kids. We vaccinate our kids, right? Or we take them to the doctor. We have 3 vets on staff, 2 vets now, working on the 3rd one. And, you know, the other two pictures are just some old pictures of kind of the way it used to be, right? And I guess when we look back, at the time, we didn't realize it, but that was the simple days. That's like when nobody actually looked into our business, or we never felt any kind of outside pressure. And our biggest worry was just making sure that we were running our business properly. We had the right amount of financing to make it work, and we went down the right path, and so on and so forth. So, you know, that was a day that was different than today. So now, you know, we have contract farmers, some 400 family farmers that raise our turkeys and our hogs and our chicken layers for us. So truly, we're not only a family farm and family managed company, but we also have in our system 400 other family farmers who not only raise animals and poultry for us, but they also do their own grain farming possibly. Or maybe they'll have steers, or maybe they'll even have a small dairy herd. And so there's also things like sustainability and environmental things and all kinds of stuff that, you know, here again, we didn't used to, I guess you would say, maybe worry about. But we actually did. You know, we did a lot of things that was important back in the day. And then there are the neighbors, you know, consulting with the neighbors and having a good neighbor policy. So there's just a whole host of things. Referring back to Brad, that, you know, I think while we're in the spotlight out there in Ohio with 12 million people in Ohio, and right next door in Michigan and Indiana has about the same number, and he's talking about, what did he say, 38 million within 2 hours or something. I'm like, wow, I guess we've got it easy. So this is what we used to do, right? We used to raise our turkeys outside. That's my youngest son, Cole, and he's actually the one that grew up and grew mac and cheese for our presidential turkey adventure last year that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But, you know, many people would say, oh, that's how you should raise your turkeys, right? Have them outside, have them right next to the cornfield, and they'll be happy and everything will be fine. Well, I don't know about you, but I've arranged a lot of turkeys in my life, and we've also had pigs out in the field, and we've had sheep out in the field. I wouldn't want to repeat any of that today. They're all in barns now, and, you know, it's very controllable. But back then, you know, we worried about owls coming in and hawks coming in and picking up small birds when they were first placed out in the field and killing them. We had weasels and minks coming in and killing them. We had wild dogs that would go through the fence and chase them around. Thunderstorms, they would end up running in the woods or in the cornfield and piling up. So just one thing after another. But that was the way we did it. We didn't have the barns to raise them, so we raised them outside, right? Well, did we move them inside because consumers or other people pressured us to? No. We moved them inside because it was better for the health of the turkeys. Same thing for our pigs. So you can see a building here. And probably many of you have, whether you've seen it on YouTube or maybe you visited. In fact, I do have a question here. So there's, they say that there's about 6 million, I guess you'd say, true farmers in America. And I think there's about 315 million in the population of all America. So roughly 2%. So that would mean if there's roughly 200 people here today, there should be about 4 farmers. Now, knowing that this is a farm-based thing, there should be even more than that. So I know Brad and I are farmers, and I'm talking about somebody who actually makes a living farming out on the farm, right? Let's take us two out. Are there 4 or 5 people in here can raise their hand and say, currently you are a farmer? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, but pretty good. But you think about it, this is a farm-based meeting, right? And we actually have pretty much about the 2 or 3% that it is. So it's just interesting. So many people are getting so many generations away from their farming background. They say, I think, that the average is maybe 3 generations. It was their, what would that be, their great-grandfather and grandmother that were farmers. So we have to worry about now the consumer up there in that corner picture up there. She's standing at the counter, and she's saying, like, well, I don't know what's going into my food, or where is it sourced from, or anything like that. And also, you know, the families, the whole being, some are worried about organic. My Cole now has my first grandson, and they're buying him all this organic baby food and all this other organic stuff. And I'm like, wow, you guys didn't grow up like that. You know, you just ate what we ate, you know, but no, everybody, you know, so, I mean, I'm happy that they're treating him so good, I guess, but it's just interesting how they have went to that. And I got a quick story about consumers. So I can remember one time, I think Brad was talking about it, or somebody else was, their story. I remember one time I got a phone call from one of my kids. So I got 20 and 30 something. I got four children, if you will, adults. And one of their friends called me, knowing I'm in the farm business and the egg business, said, I'm standing in front of the egg counter. So vision this. She's crying on the phone to me, right? She wants to buy eggs. It's one of her first times. This was back a little bit, kind of fresh out of college, maybe just got married, if I can remember right. Anyway, she wants to know what's the best eggs to buy. I'm like, well, what do you mean? And she says, well, there's organic and there's omega-3s, and then there's these cage-free ones. I don't want my chickens in cages. And, brown eggs and white eggs, and some cost $4 and some cost $2. But she was all shook up. So it was a major thing for her just to buy a dozen eggs. Kind of like probably that lady's trying to figure out, do I buy this meat or that meat? So, next one. So, and then they talk about factory farmers, right? And that's the last thing I figure that we are, and many of our counterparts are. I think this maybe is from the Poults movie. And I don't see anything in there that makes me think that has anything to do with farming. But it's interesting how, some of these companies are portraying us. And it's a bit of marketing, and it's their business to do that. So I'm not necessarily condemning them, but it's just interesting what you kind of have to fight after you just got done seeing that whole video about Brad's farm and how it was completely a different feeling than what you feel here, right? So you can see the two opposing situations, and a lot of this I'm talking about turkeys, but it could be any of our businesses, whether it be hogs or chicken layers. But on the one side, it's actually one of our old partners, if you will, one of the stogglers, out in a flock of turkeys. And you can tell by with the bronze and the white turkeys that I can date that to pretty much about 1959 or 1960. That was the time when the turkey industry switched from white turkeys to bronze turkeys to white turkeys. And so we had these mixed flocks then. So even though I don't know exact date, it has to be right around 1960. And then here's one of our family farmers in front of one of his barns. And like Brad said, you do need to drive by and see, how your farm looks, right? Well, he's quite proud, and we're quite proud. We put up signs there on every one of our contract family farmers telling, the farmer's name with our logo on there. We want to make sure that if anybody's driving by that it has, I guess you might say, our stamp of certification right there on that farm. So this is one of our sow operations. Here again, if you being a few farmers in here, or maybe your grandfathers or whatever, your dads, but we used to raise pigs outside, right? And in the mud, and I guess you'd say in the slop or whatever. These barns are completely, different than that, as you well know. They're climate controlled. They got the best conditions, biosecurity. Everybody takes a shower to go into our sow farms, and so we feel, as you'll see many times over in here, that we do a really good job of taking care of our animals. In fact, one of our beliefs is that to some extent we're trying to raise our animal care up to the level of human safety in our company. So I don't know if you follow that, think about that. Animal care up to the same level as human safety. Now, I'm not saying that if you have a choice that we're not going to make sure that all of our team members are safe. Obviously, that is one of our important things. But it's actually to us just as equal as we need to make sure that our animals and our birds are just as safe. Something else that happens that I think many people don't understand, and I don't know that consumers understand, but our animals get a perfect diet. Now, I don't know about you, but, I stop in and eat a McRib once in a while, and I'll be known to eat some bold Dorito chips and, whatever, drink a beer or something, right? And probably some percentage of my diet is not perfect, and in your case, you may be able to say the same thing, but you can't say that about our hogs and our turkeys and our cattle and our chicken layers. You just can't say that. We give them a perfect diet. whole grain, soybean meal, all the supplements, the vitamins, everything that they need to actually grow the best way possible. And we can't waste any money in that because we're in the business to make money. So here again, it's just done perfect. And I don't know that many of you would understand it, but I don't know that consumers understand that they almost eat better than many people eat. So it's just another one of those things of raising them to a different level. And, there is a thing about cages for chickens. You hear that story. Well, cages for turkeys. Well, we don't raise our turkeys in cages, but it's not because somebody told us we can. It's just that that's not how the turkey industry raises turkeys. We have wooden nests here. I can remember as a young kid, out there and actually out on range in wooden nests gathering eggs for my dad. Pretty much the same nest, the same traps and everything. It's just now they're inside barns. Our pigs, in the barns we're raising them in, we went to pen gestation. We've actually getting better results out of them than we did in prior years on different, like in crates and so on. And, in our turkey hatchery where we hatch 15 million turkeys a year, there's just all kinds of things that you have to do to make sure that in 28 days you get the absolute best hatch coming out with a healthy poult. So here again, just kind of over and over, consumers, I don't believe, understand how much work we all go through to produce the food that they enjoy at the restaurants and the grocery stores, and we also do it with animal care in mind, for sure. So what are we doing here these days? We're storytelling, and just like Brad was up here doing it, and I've done this a fair number of times, and I've got another talk down in Lexington coming up here in May. And it's something that we didn't used to do. It was not even on our radar screen to do it. And we're not just saying we're the only ones. I'm like Brad. Our entire industry, the turkey industry, the pork industry, the egg layer industry, everyone is working hard to tell our story faster and faster and better and better. And all the while, I saw, I think Andy had up there, YouTube proof, right? So on one hand, somebody might be saying here in the audience or, a consumer group would say, well, they're only doing that stuff because they want to be YouTube proof. We've done this stuff for years, long before I even knew what YouTube was, right? Now, in the end, does it help, keep us from getting on YouTube with something that we don't want to be? Sure it does. But that's not the first reason that we're doing that. And I would say that in Brad's case and many of our cases, it's not the reason we do it to start with, but it is one of the side benefits, you might say. So we do a lot of things that we're bringing in the outside world. Whether, used to be we only brought in the local 4-H groups. We brought in the local FFA groups. The agriculture groups, we felt comfortable. They were, they were aware of what we did anyways. Now we bring in teachers from like the big cities like Columbus or Cincinnati. We'll bring a group in on a bus and we'll show them around. We bring in school kids. When we did the presidential turkey, we brought in almost about 2,000 school kids to our farm and their teachers. They could take pictures or whatever, and we showed them how we raise turkeys and the biosecurity. And we just have all kinds of different ways. We bring the media in. Of course, in the turkey business, every Thanksgiving, every local newspaper and TV station wants shots of turkeys. So we obviously do that. So here again, it's a lot of like what Brad was talking about in his point there with his different experiences, is that we are opening up our barn doors, more and more every day. And we also have viewing windows. That was the one that was on the left there. That on our hog barns, on our turkey barns, we actually put little rooms on the sides with glass looking out into the buildings to see how the turkeys and the hogs are being raised, and that's where we take people. We have a really stringent biosecurity program. I'm sure many of you heard about the high path avian influenza that's just putting a crisis on the turkey business, particularly out in the Midwest and out in Minnesota and Iowa and so on. And so, you know, we have to be very careful about outsiders coming into our barns, including our own staff coming in and out. But these outside viewing rooms has been one way for us to, I guess you say, open the barn door without actually opening the barn door. And that's been a very easy and a great way to show people that. So today we have to kind of think about, you know, what is that consumer thinking about? And I just finished up my year as the National Turkey Federation chairman. And one of the challenges I posed to the industry was to get into the head of these consumers these days, and let's find out why, in our particular case for the turkey industry, why they're not eating more turkey on a regular basis. Obviously, everybody eats turkey at Thanksgiving time, and they eat them at, you know, some at Christmas, and then you have turkey burgers and wraps for lunch and so on. But why, for say about 20 years, has consumption been stalemated at about 16 pounds per person per year? So we're in our first full year of implementation of that. And it's interesting some of the things that we've learned from that. And one of the things is that there's a low awareness level of, and here just talking about turkey business, of how we raise turkeys. Like, for instance, some will say, well, I'm not sure about eating turkey because I think you guys put all kinds of steroids and hormones in there. And we're like, no, we don't. So we're not sure where you got that from, but we don't do that. Well, you guys raise your turkeys in cages. No, we don't do that either. You know, well, you give them just, you know, you give them antibiotics just, you know, random, maybe for whatever reason we don't even know. Well, no, because antibiotics is really expensive. And we have 2 vets on staff. So we only give them antibiotics if they're getting sick or when they're sick, much like you do when your child's got sore throat. So there's all these types of awareness things that, you know, we're somewhat aware of, but as we've started to do these focus groups and these advisory councils for this program, it's what we call 20 by 2020 in the National Turkey Federation, it's starting to open our eyes more like, oh, we need to even say things that we understand, but we didn't know that they didn't. For instance, would you believe some would say, well, I only want my turkey to be farm raised. Okay, well, I don't know how many turkeys are raised in the city, but I pretty well guarantee you that they are all farm raised. So anyways, it's just something that you do have to open your eyes and you do have to get an idea of what's going on in the consumer heads that maybe we're not that aware of. So are we doing things that are consumer driven? Well, sure we are. And I would say that any business does that because that's what pays the bills, right? We have 1,800 people that we need to hit payroll every week on. We have 400 contract growers. We have to make payments to them. So there's a whole lot of financial responsibility that we have and all the families that are associated with that. So one thing that we're doing is that every new sow farm we're building are all pin gestation farms. So instead of having crates to put our sows in, we're now putting them in pin gestation, and we're using electronic feeding stations, which you'll see one set in there called EFS. And so there's all kinds of different things happening on the pork side. And on the chicken layer side, we're in the process right now of putting together 2 new farms. They're all aviary-style chicken laying farms, all in line. One's probably going to be a cartoning facility farm, and the other's maybe going to be a breaking farm. But you see a picture there. But this is very interesting. We sent a group over to Italy. I went down to Missouri to see some of this. And although they are still raised in cages, they are allowed to get out of cages. And as you can see, that's an interesting thing. You put 50,000 chicken layers into a barn, and you open up these doors on these cages, and they start to come out. It's just like in the old days, you know, they're coming out, they're flying up on roost, and when they're hungry or they want to lay eggs, they'll go back up inside those cages on their own and go up to the nest box and lay eggs. So there are a lot of things that are changing in these industries that we are having to adapt to, but it's okay. I mean, we've been adapting for years, and many of these things that as we look into them, we're going like, oh, there's some positives there that are good for us. So we even brought in Temple Grandin to our processing plant. Can you imagine how nervous that made our guys? They're like, really? Like, you know, she's going to put this in the magazine. She's going to talk to other people about what she sees. And we're like, too bad. We're going to bring her in, and we're going to find out what she says. So in our what we call our St. Henry turkey processing plant, we literally brought her in some years back, I think maybe 2006 or so, and we were putting in a new CO2 stunning in conjunction with Praxair, the company that helped us put it together. And we really didn't know what we were doing, but we wanted to come up with a new idea, a good idea to how to do that. So we had her come in and advise us on that. It was a great experience. She was very positive. She said, well, I wouldn't do this, I would do this. So we adjusted things. And so there's another example of what maybe some may not do, but in our particular case, we bit the bullet. We said, let's do it. We brought it in, and it worked out fine. So you all know that at some point you have unhealthy animals, right? And in that case, you have to have some way of euthanizing them. Well, I'm telling you, I've been in this business for way too long, and there's been many, many ways over the years that I've seen it done, and I've done it myself. And here is our latest, is a CO2 euthanasia box. So doesn't look very fancy, but you could put some young turkeys in that, you could put some young pigs in that, and that's how we would euthanize them. Close the lid. It's all very, very humane and so on. You hate to talk about that. It makes me uncomfortable to talk about it. But it's part of the business. We have to figure out a way to do this. And so this is something that we're currently doing. And I know others are doing this in a few other new ways. But it's one of the ways that we're adapting to, I guess you would say, the current society. So another thing that's going on in all of our businesses is that we have to handle our animals, right? There has to be some way of manually doing this. And Temple Grandin would say, and we know that if there is a lot of vocalization going on while you're handling your birds or your livestock, then there's probably a problem. For instance, if I'm sure many of you have little kids in your family, or you've been around babies, and when they're screaming, you're like, something's got to be done. I don't know what's going on here, but this kid's screaming. Let's find out, is she hungry, or does he need his diaper changed? Well, it's the same thing for animals. If they're very vocal, they got a lot of anxiety. They're stressed. Something needs to be done. In the, quote, the old days, we probably never knew the difference. We just thought, oh, well, yeah, they make a lot of noise. That's the way it is. Well, today we know better. So one way that we've done it, and this is a commercial thing, but we looked around the world and we found out that these Italian turkey loaders was the best way to load turkeys with the current technology. So I think we own maybe 4 of these now to do all of our turkeys. How did we used to do it? Well, when I was a teenager, we stood on barrels alongside these trucks, and we would literally grab a turkey off the ground, hand it up to the guy at a barrel, who would hand it up to a guy on a rack, who would throw the turkey inside the cage. Did that work very well? Well, we've had turkeys fly out of the cages and land on people. We've had guys fall off the racks on the cages. It just wasn't good for the people or for the turkeys. Well, now, when you see how we do this now, all hydraulic, all automatic, all very quiet, you go like, wow, why didn't they invent that about 40 years ago, right? So another one is a hog loader that our team, we have a lot of innovation in our team, and we allow a lot of risk to occur and so on. So our hog division group, Alan Evers, the manager, as well as his team, came up with a better way to load hogs, right? So I guess yesterday at the board meeting, I don't know if Dallas is in here, but we grabbed this little quick quote he said. I don't know if this is exactly what was said, but you're not being truly transparent unless you're uncomfortable. Well, I'm showing you things here today that I am uncomfortable. And we were going to show you actually probably a few more things, but Cassie Jo and Terry and those who are actually out there, they're even more uncomfortable, right? So we are trying to be transparent as possible, and many other companies like us are, but it does make us uncomfortable, right? So it's both good and bad. I guess if you get to the point where you're uncomfortable, then you're being transparent. So on to the next one. So the other thing is that turkeys, it's a difficult thing. I grew up catching and loading turkeys from the time I was probably 10 years old or whatever. And it's been a tough thing to do. Turkeys want to slap you, they want to jump, they want to peck you, they want to scratch you. Everything that you don't want them to do, they want to do, right? And just here another innovative idea. The team in the turkey division came up with a better way to move our turkeys around in a flatbedded trailer with pins. You just chase them in and out. And I believe the next thing is a video of how we used to do it. Uncomfortable again. Now you can see that there's probably nothing really wrong. The turkeys are landing on their feet, they're pulling them out by their feathers. It's the way we did it for 50, 70 years, right? But does that look good? Probably doesn't look good. And it's tough on the people. And this is maybe a little stressful on the turkeys. Now here's how we do it now. And you can quickly see the big difference. There's quiet, there's no big flapping going on. They're just, moseying their way into the barn. And much like Brad said, these are not videos we're showing you that are like specially staged so they look good. This is actually how we do it now, and the one before was how it was done before. So here again, we're just trying to show you the changes we made and also how we're willing to be able to show people stuff now. Here's another thing. So this is all about vocalization, and it's all about non-human contact with the animals, if you will. So we're just trying to give you an idea. I think everything else you've heard here today, other than Brad's talk, has been, maybe more, general. This is specifically right down the farm. This is what we have to deal with and what we do to make changes. So I know my time's getting a little short here. We'll kind of go through this. So, we have to do a lot of things that has to do with biosecurity and disease control and stuff. And so sometimes they talked about the black box. Somebody on the outside, could be media or whatever, would look at that like, oh, you're hiding something, aren't you? Well, no. We're afraid that our turkeys or our animals will get sick by something tracked in. So we have to do a lot of things like coveralls and hair nets and so on. There's the viewing rooms that you'll see, and we also have pictures and definitions of how we do things. And another thing we did that's uncomfortable, but we did it, was we did what we call a pig affair. We brought 2 full gestated sows into local fairs and had them have their litters right there in front of people. And we had to put somebody there 24 hours a day for the entire time. A lot of work and, concern, and would there be pictures taken, and what would the media say? It was a great experience. People loved it. Of course, a lot of farm families, and it's at the local fairs. But we did the same thing with turkeys, not quite as uncomfortable, if you will, but we had turkeys hatching, eggs hatching, and the little turkeys coming out wet and standing up. And so, this is just another example of how we're opening our barn doors by actually taking it to the people, if you will. And then we did the presidential turkey deal, and I don't know if any of you seen that last year, but as a chairman of the National Turkey Federation, one of the positive things you get to do for all the extra work you do for that is you get to raise and take the 2 turkeys, the tom turkeys, to see the president. And my son Cole raised what was mac and cheese last year, and the social media picked that. I'll tell you a quick side story is when we brought the kids out from the schools, we asked them, what would you like to call them? We're going to give them some names to the White House. One kid said, lunch and dinner. We're like, that's it, that's perfect, well, and the White House didn't like that, because they're going to be pardoned, so mac and cheese was better. But anyways, just another situation of bringing all these kids and bringing these teachers out, and it's like, oh my gosh, what might they see, what might they say, emails and Twitter and all the different things that might happen. It was an absolutely positive experience. We brought 4 mommy bloggers, I guess, in from Indianapolis and I think Cincinnati. Brought them to the farm, showed them around, let them understand, how we did things. Nothing but positive there. Ron Prestige of Prestige Farms last year in September did the same thing for the pork industry. Had an absolute wonderful experience bringing these bloggers in. Our turkey industry is going to do the same thing nationally in August. So, you know, we're all in these different associations. We're all pushing as hard as we can to get the word out, but it does take time and effort, obviously. So this is just some information about the presidential outreach, and although maybe it doesn't have anything to do with animal care, but it shows you the impact you can have, and Brad brought the same thing up. You can see the numbers up there. It just totally amazed us. But we, Cassie Jo and Emily and all of our group, worked really hard in association with our state Ohio Poultry Association and National Turkey Federation to get as much positive impact as possible. And you can see it blew everybody away. The whole concentrated effort just was amazing, and we had a great time. We had so much fun doing it. It's hard to believe you literally take 2 tom turkeys to the Willard Hotel and you give them their old hotel room. Like, really? Like, I wasn't sure how this was going to work. And, you know, they're gobbling all night. Every time a emergency vehicle goes by or a police station, you know, they hear something, or a police car goes by, they hear something, they're gobbling, you know, and so, you know, the neighbors are calling down the front desk going, I think I hear something gobbling on this floor, but I'm not sure what it is, you know, because they didn't know, we didn't tell them, right? And but the cool thing was we literally got to take, for the first time in 68 years, we took our turkeys inside the White House. That was the absolute neatest thing, because it was a cold, rainy, sleety day, and it's never been that bad before, and they always figured out somewhere to do it outside because they didn't want to take turkeys into the White House. And that's another story. So, but anyways, they go like, hey, it's too bad, we have to go in the White House. And so this got set up in the entryway of the White House, and it was just an absolutely wonderful experience. Literally about 80 feet of video cameras and you know, media, and there was somebody there from France and somebody there from Germany and Japan. It's amazing how that 1 hour of time with the president, how much attention that gets. So. And then, you know, it's just that we have a lot of millennials ourselves, and so we attempt to get them involved, just like Jeff Fromm was talking yesterday, and get them to participate in the system. And we have a lot of young people coming into our system. And one way we do that is we develop this animal care team that we've got set up. And there's a couple other things we're going to show you here real quick, just to kind of move through them. But with the animal care team, we actually got volunteers. They had to apply for that. And we have a 800 hotline. If anybody sees animal abuse going on or anything they don't like out in the farm, they can call that in. We have an email they can send it to. They have contact people. And I'm going to show you here in a little bit. We also asked them why they wanted to be on this team. And that's going to be coming up here in a little bit. So it's like I said there before, you know, we're just trying to think about that whole process of, it's, you know, human safety is very, very important in any company, and we all spend a lot of time at it, and for good reasons. And the same thing goes true for animal care. We're trying to raise them up to the same level at some point. So, you know, there's just things that we do now with the culture of animal care. Training, open door policy, you can go on, we'll just kind of keep going through this. We've got shirts that we hand out. Every new team member that comes to work for us gets these shirts. We've got coupons that if somebody sees somebody doing something positive with the birds or with the hogs, or they can give this coupon that's good for $5. So in other words, in our culture, internally, we're also trying to promote this throughout the entire system. We got new training. It's all done with pictures and videos. And here's a proper way just to walk through a turkey barn. You know, you wouldn't think that would make a difference, but if you walk through too fast, the turkeys are flying, they're hitting feeders and so on. You know, so I'm even wearing my animal care team shirt here. So, you know, one of the things that, you know, we have to do as, you know, as individuals is set an example, right? So this isn't about buying somebody, you know, an animal care team shirt and saying, here, you know, you can take it home, wear it or whatever. You know, it's about us doing the same thing as leaders so that they see that it's important to us and it's important to everybody in the company.